On September 15, 2008, a bank with 25,000 employees and 158 years of history ceased to exist in about 48 hours. Lehman Brothers didn't run out of buildings. It didn't run out of employees. It didn't even technically run out of assets on paper. It ran out of something you can't see, can't hold, and can't put on a balance sheet. Trust. And when that one invisible thing disappeared, $600 billion in assets became almost worthless overnight. Not because the assets changed. Because everyone, at the exact same moment, stopped believing they were worth what the paper said. That's the part nobody tells you about money. It's not backed by gold anymore. It's not really backed by governments either, not in the way you think. It's backed by a mutual agreement between strangers to keep pretending. And the moment enough people stop pretending at the same time, the whole thing doesn't slow down. It collapses. Why this matters now? Here's the uncomfortable part. This isn't a 2008 story. This is a right now story. Every banking system on Earth today is built on the same fragile agreement. Regional bank runs in the U.S. in 2023. Credit Suisse, a 167-year-old institution, gone in a weekend, absorbed by UBS because depositors simply stopped believing. Not because the bank's math was suddenly wrong. Because the story around the math stopped being believable. You use this system every single day. Your salary. Your UPI transfer. Your mutual fund. Your fixed deposit. All of it rests on the same quiet assumption that if you asked for your money back tomorrow, it would actually be there. It usually isn't. And that's not a conspiracy. That's the design. How it actually works. Let's break down what a bank actually does, because most people get this wrong. You deposit 100 rupees. You assume it sits in a vault with your name on it. It doesn't. The bank keeps a small fraction, often around 4 to 10% depending on the country's reserve requirements, and lends out the rest. That borrower deposits it somewhere else. That bank lends most of it out again. Somewhere else. Again. This is called fractional reserve banking, and it's not a flaw. It's the entire engine of how modern economies grow. It's how a shopkeeper gets a loan, how a startup gets funded, how a house gets built. Money multiplies because it keeps moving. But here's the catch nobody puts in bold letters. If every depositor asked for their money back on the same day, no bank on earth could pay everyone. Not one. Not the biggest one. Not the safest one. The system isn't designed to survive everyone believing at once that it might fail. It's designed to survive on the assumption that they never will. The hidden mechanism. This is where it gets genuinely strange. A bank run isn't caused by bad math. It's caused by a change in expectation. Economists call this a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's one of the few places in finance where believing something can literally make it true. If depositors believe a bank is safe, nobody withdraws in a panic, the bank stays liquid, and the belief was correct. If depositors believe the bank might fail, everyone withdraws at once, the bank actually does fail, and the belief was also correct, same bank. Same balance sheet. Two completely different outcomes. The only variable that changed was what people believed everyone else was about to do. This is why central banks exist. This is why deposit insurance exists. This is why governments announce the banking system is stable during a crisis, often before they've even finished checking if it's true. Because in this system, the announcement isn't just describing reality. Sometimes the announcement is the only thing preventing a different reality from happening.
Now here's where the story gets uncomfortable, because the narrative sold to most people is that modern finance is engineered, precise, almost scientific. Risk models, stress tests, regulatory frameworks, algorithms watching everything in real time. The reality is messier. In 2008, the credit rating agencies, the institutions literally paid to measure trustworthiness, rated mortgage-backed securities as AAA, the safest possible rating, right up until those same securities became nearly worthless. The people whose entire job was to quantify trust got it catastrophically wrong and got paid by the same banks whose products they were rating. Stress tests are supposed to simulate what would happen in a crisis, but a stress test can only simulate the scenarios its designers thought to imagine. Nobody in 2019 ran a stress test for global pandemic freezes the world economy in 3 weeks. Nobody in early 2023 ran a stress test for a bank collapses because of a coordinated panic that spreads through group chats and Twitter faster than the bank's own PR team can respond. Silicon Valley Bank didn't fail because of bad loans. It failed because withdrawal requests moved at the speed of a smartphone notification, faster than any system built in the era of physical bank queues was ever designed to handle. The infrastructure of trust is still, in some fundamental ways, running on 20th century assumptions about how fast panic can travel. Zooming out. So zoom out for a second, because the implications go far beyond any single bank. Governments themselves borrow on the same principle of trust. When a country issues bonds, it's essentially saying, lend us money now, we promise to pay you back later, with interest. The interest rate a government pays isn't really about their spreadsheet. It's about how much the world currently believes that country will keep its word. That's why a credit rating downgrade, even a small one, can cost a country billions in extra borrowing costs. Not because anything physically changed overnight, because belief shifted by a few percentage points. Currencies work the same way. The rupee, the dollar, the euro, none of them are backed by a vault of gold anymore. They're backed by collective confidence in the institutions that issue them. The moment that confidence cracks in a country, you get what's happened in Venezuela, in Zimbabwe, in Lebanon. Hyperinflation, where the paper doesn't change, but what people believe it's worth changes so fast that prices can double in weeks. The financial system isn't a machine sitting on top of trust. Trust isn't a feature of the system. Trust is the system. Everything else, the banks, the regulators, the currencies, the credit ratings, is just infrastructure built to manage and contain that one fragile variable. Closing. Here's what's strange when you actually sit with this. We built the most sophisticated, mathematically dense, technologically advanced financial infrastructure in human history. And at the very center of it, holding the entire structure together, is the same thing that's always held human systems together. Strangers agreeing, mostly without saying it out loud, to believe each other. Every currency note, every bank deposit, every government bond is a promise. Nothing more. A promise that enough people have agreed, for now, to keep believing. Which raises a question worth sitting with. In a world where panic can now spread globally in minutes instead of days, where a single post can move billions before regulators even see it happen, are we actually getting better at managing trust? Or have we just gotten much, much faster at losing it?